Okay, so today's lesson is going to be about the origins of the Vietnam War, which is very complicated. And so, unfortunately, we're going to have to really summarize what led to the United States involvement. And so, today's lesson is going to be focused on a reading and a timeline that you're going to fill in for your assignment. So, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I know some students have problems with the PDF for whatever reason. So the ultimate assignment is to fill out this document. And so those of you that struggle with the PDF, you can fill it out here. And so you'll see that there's different pages. So the PDF has 6 total pages. So just make sure that you're following along with where it says up here, page 1. And then I also have titles. So here it says regional history, and you'll see here it says page 1 regional history. But as you can see though, page 1 is already done for you, so you don't have to do anything for that one. It's already filled in here at the bottom. So really the assignment starts on page 2, but please at least read page 1. And then you'll see here page 2, French colonialism, and then there's 3 questions. Then page 3, rebellions and revolution. And so you'll see that there. If you're okay with doing the PDF, then I'm fine with you filling it in directly on the PDF itself. So whatever works for you, you only need to do it in one spot. If you're more of a, write it out kind of person, you can do that too, but just make sure that you're taking a picture and it's really clear, because sometimes I'm getting, pictures that I can't see. And so it's hard for me to follow along with that. So that's my only request. So quickly, I'm just going to kind of skim over the info, and then please read that and again, fill in the timeline. So the first page is basically setting you up for, Vietnam and where it came from. And so its connection with, as you can see here, how close it is to China. So this is Vietnam here, and its neighbor is China. For a long time, China controlled Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. And these 3 countries are also going to be involved in the Vietnam War. Okay, and remember before too, we talked about that they're considered Indochina. Finally, Vietnam achieved its own independence in 939. So you see that here as one of the time markers. So what happened? In the 1800s, just like in lots of places around the world, a lot in Africa and Asia, different empires were taking over weaker countries and using their resources and exploiting the people living there. And so this is what happened in Vietnam. And the empire at the time was France. So France colonized Vietnam and took control. And just like we saw in other places in Africa, the exploitation and the use of the resources there was the main reason for their occupation. Vietnam is known for its rubber, as well as other crops, but that's a big deal. So the second page talks about the takeover by France. Okay, and so this third page gets into then the first revolution against France. And what ended up happening is that because World War II was such a widespread war and France was occupied very quickly by Germany, it had to give up its control of Vietnam to Japan, which was an ally of Germany. And so Japan actually controlled Vietnam through the war. But we know Japan ends up losing the war and so had to give up its territory of Vietnam. And so that meant technically that the Allies had control. So guess who gets control back of Vietnam? France. The United States basically works with France and kind of hands it back over, which isn't going to work. In the meantime, there was a gentleman known by Ho Chi Minh who came to rise to power in Vietnam and led a lot of these revolutions and would continue to in the early parts of the war. And so following the end of World War II, we know the Cold War was brewing between the Soviet Union and the United States. Ho Chi Minh, even though he modeled a lot of his documents and speeches after the United States and freedoms, and he even learned English to make sure that he would kind of stay in the graces of the United States did not want him in power because he was communist. So the during the Cold War, the Soviet Union, Russia really looked at Vietnam as a strategic country to have control and to work with, as well as its close neighbor being China. And the United States did send aid to help support anti-communist movements that were happening in South Vietnam, while France continued to rebuild its colonies there. So moving on to what is now known as the First Indochina War. This was the first revolution against France after World War II. And so it was led by Ho Chi Minh, and the United States supported with a lot of money. And what ended up happening is the North Vietnamese end up winning at a strategic battle. And as a result, the peace treaty that was signed ended up giving the territory to Ho Chi Minh in the north only. And there was kind of this DMZ area similar to North and South Korea following the end of the war. And so South Korea had a president elected through the United States. And what was supposed to happen was there was going to be a legitimate election to reunite the country as one. And that never happened because both sides couldn't agree. North and South Vietnam couldn't agree on the terms. And the United States pretty much knew that Ho Chi Minh would win that election, meaning that Vietnam would be communist. So this election never took place. And as a result, the United States and Vietnam went to war. And so again, this is really super basic, and we'll kind of start more in the First Indochina War in our next lesson, just so that we can have a better understanding of what the United States places in all of this, because, with France having control, it doesn't really make sense that the United States would be involved besides being an ally. So we'll kind of step back a little bit, but hopefully you can just have some basic understanding of these steps leading to the war itself. And then I also added this map here. We'll probably look at this again later, but just to give you an idea too of kind of the basics of the war being fought between North and South. And so we'll get into that more later. I put some notes here off to the side, so if you want to read those too, that would be great. Okay, so again, you can fill in the information on this document here, or you can fill it in directly on this document itself if you download it as a PDF, and then you should be able to save it and add it back in as an attachment to the assignment and turn that in. So that's the deal for the lesson. Please let me know if you have any questions so I can help you, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Bye.